Well, good morning. My Brooks career started out like most other people's on a nice, humid 100-degree day in early September. And if you can probably tell, and maybe this photo, if it ever gets up there, will help enlighten you, I was pretty sunburned, awkward, naive, and totally unequipped to live with living by myself at boarding school. Honestly, the only reference I had for boarding school life was my obsession with the show Zoe 101. And let me tell you, I was only slightly devastated to find out that Brooks was not at all like Pacific Coast Academy. You can go to the next page. Next slide. When I first came to campus my freshman fall. While I know 4 years ago I would have loved to predict the person I might become after 4 years, I know it wouldn't have been anything close to the truth. The morning before I left for freshman soccer preseason, I wrote down some goals I had for myself over the next 4 years. From what I can remember, my list went something like this. Goal number 1, get a 4.0 GPA and be valedictorian. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, 13-year-old me, but that didn't exactly happen. But hey, it's all okay. Sometimes you just have to spend the entirety of study hall watching back-to-back episodes of Grey's Anatomy. Goal number 2, be on student government and get involved in clubs, just because, sounds good on a college app. Goal number 3, be more confident and care a little less about what everyone thinks of me. All I can tell you is that if 14-year-old me saw me standing up here right now, speaking in front of the entire school, they probably would first die of secondhand embarrassment before stomping up to this very podium and marching me straight out the door. Anyway, while these are all simple enough and probably the standard outline of most 13, 14-year-old goals, admittedly, they were pretty surface level. And then we have goal number 4, don't be awkward and cringy. Well, clearly nothing has changed, but I know I could stand up here all day and laugh about the time Kate Wilson, with encouragement from Caroline O'Keefe, accidentally shoved me down the Merriman stairs my freshman year. Or that time when I misread an email from Miss Johnston and proceeded to call every member of the class to say that class was canceled that day. It was not canceled that day. Or even that time earlier this winter when Willie Waters taught me how to change a diaper. Boarding school can sure take you to some strange places. However, I feel I cannot honestly describe the past 4 years without discussing some of the more difficult challenges and moments I faced. And this all starts with the last goal I wrote down. Goal number 5, make the varsity soccer team at Brooks. And you can go to the next slide. For the past 8 years of my life, I had spent almost every day, every hour after school on a soccer field. My club soccer team was one of the closest things I had to family, and we would do everything together, from overnight tournament trips to weekly after-practice dinners. Over the years, soccer became my outlet as I struggled to fit in with the girls at my school and found more in common with the girls on my team. I hated being at school as a result of my school friends constantly obsessing over every little thing they ate and essentially body-shaming me anytime I ate a lot more than they did. During this time, anytime I was having a rough day, I was able to push my problems to the side by being around people who all shared a common passion and did not comment on what I ate. Admittedly, while playing soccer to get through every problem I had may not have been the best thing to do, it was ultimately how I navigated the ups and downs of middle school. Coming to Brooks, I would never have thought for one moment that soccer wouldn't play a part in my life after everything it had gotten me during those 3 years. But then I came to Brooks, and things were different. I made the team, but was really just the star, ball, and water girl for the first 2 falls at Brooks, and I was absolutely miserable. All through my freshman year, I felt this overwhelming pressure to fit into one of 3 categories. You could be the art student, the academic genius, or the athlete. For the entirety of my first year at Brooks, I was stuck trying to force myself into one of these categories, and I was not happy. I often questioned if Brooks was the place for me. I even went as far as to go to a visit day at Andover High School to consider transferring out. However, as I learned that day, Andover High School isn't named the Jungle for no reason. So I decided to stay. I was so focused on getting good grades and being on varsity sports teams that I was blind to realize that these things are not always what are going to make you the most happy. Things like titles and awards can only do so much to define a person. I mean, those are great, but they're not everything. Honestly, I would have probably continued to unhappily pursue the same goals if it wasn't for what I now consider to be the best soccer game of my life, the annual JV Pike vs. Brooks soccer game. And as Naima McDonald can tell you, it really does bring out the best in all of us. It was the day I played in my first JV soccer game. It was also the day I tore the first out of all 3 ACLs I didn't even realize I had. I was devastated and acted like it was the end of the world, and it honestly kind of felt like it was at the time. I didn't know how to cope with my frustration at not being able to work out for 6 months, and I felt at a loss no longer following those goals that seemed like the ingredients to success. This followed by what felt like hundreds of doctor's appointments, hospital trips, and months spent crutching around campus made me become seriously depressed my sophomore year. I was never happy, and I felt really lost and alone. The entire process is really mentally and physically exhausting, as much as anyone who has dealt with the same thing may not want to admit. At the time, sophomore year, I didn't really understand what I was going through, and I didn't feel like I could really say, in fear of being labeled as unstable or even worse, a liability. From my experience, being in a community that still has lingering stigmas around mental illness can be really frustrating and intimidating. It can be hard to advocate for yourself and get help with concern that you may be turned away. I would say every community has a long way to go before being able to successfully accommodate each and every student. In a world that is changing so fast, things are much different than they were, say, 10 to 15 years ago. There are different stresses and different challenges that teenagers are facing than before. 1 in 5 teenagers experiences mental illness. I am that 1 in 5. I think it is safe to say that if you aren't struggling, then you know someone who is, and if you are struggling, please know you're not alone. It was really hard asking for and accepting help, but after I finally started seeing a therapist outside of school for a while, I was fully able to come to terms with what had happened and develop healthier coping mechanisms. While tearing my ACL 2 more times over the next 2 years wasn't exactly enjoyable, I was able to handle it all better each time. I had the knowledge that I had the ability to overcome the previous and knew that I guess had best better do it again. I feel that often we shy away from telling our stories of the past 4 years for fear of judgment or misunderstanding. Life is unpredictable. Nothing ever turns out exactly how you plan it to, and that is okay. You can go to the next slide. Sorry. You have to learn to embrace adversity and not try to run from it. I literally could not run. My injuries have frankly put me in far more uncomfortable situations than I would ever want to think about. There is really nothing quite like having your best friends literally wheel you into the Merriman shower, tape your leg with a trash bag, and throw you in wearing nothing but that trash bag. Then they have to wait outside the door to make sure you don't fall and cause, yet again, another scene. Thank you, Katie and Caitlin, for truly sticking with me through it almost every fall here at Brooks, with my every fall literally. I never thought I would be able to get to a point in my life where I could say I was grateful for what happened. It's crazy to think that if I had never played in that JV soccer game 4 years ago, I would be an entirely different person. With that one game, I would still be unhappily trying to pursue my freshman goals. I would not have become part of the most iconic JV girls ice hockey manager duo there ever was with Will Coslow. And I might have even saved myself from buying into the brutality and love that we all know is Totes Brooks' crew program. You can go to the next slide. In the end, rehabbing my knee 3 times for what would end up totaling between 20 to 24 months taught me some tough life lessons of resilience and what it takes to be committed to a process. A process which, as you all know, did not always have immediate results for me. One thing that got me through some of my hardest moments was learning to surround myself with positive people who make you laugh even on your worst days. Laughter is seriously the world's best medicine. Over the past 4 years, I have learned it is about the quality of the people, not the quantity, which makes friendships worthwhile. Sometimes, your most special moments in high school even come at 12:30 a.m. in the common room of Merriman, screaming, "Kiss me through the phone," with the rest of your dorm. Or when you, your phone, and 4 other girls take a nice swim in the lake your sophomore year because you're really not feeling practice that day. Sorry, Tote. Or the friendships you form when you overshare so much to your dorm neighbors, Sasha and Delia, that by the time they realize they are never getting rid of you, it is too late. My single and your double has now become a triple. None of them were part of my original goals, but all of them are priceless moments and relationships I will carry with me always. So, thank you to my friends for never leaving my side, no matter how many times you had to push me up and down the hill on Main Street, and for always making me laugh. Tote, thanks for teaching me and testing my ability to persevere through adversity. That definitely has not changed till this day. I mean, the devil works hard, but Tote Smith, he works harder. To the crew team, not sure what I will do without our excessive hours spent together dancing, singing, screaming, and crying. I will miss my crew family. Davis, Caitlin and I are not sure if you hate us or love us, but thanks for not kicking us out of Peabody every Friday night for the past 2 years. You've become like a strange, weird uncle to us, and for that, we are forever grateful, even if you are not. My parents for always encouraging me, no matter how hard things may have been, to find the best in every single day and always try my hardest to be kind to those around me, no matter the circumstance. To Mrs. Waters, oh, you can change the slide too, sorry. Switch slide. To Mrs. Waters, thank you for taking me in as though I was your own daughter. I have absolutely no idea what I will do without your guidance and advice through the craziness of life. I would have been very lost without you. The past 4 years have taught me more about myself than I thought possible. So finally, and as cliche as it sounds, thank you, Brooks, for giving me the most meaningful educational experience. I hope it will be not the most educational, but experience I've had so far in my life. Thank you.